In the first part of this discussion, we saw how a simple receipt, a mere slip of paper, could be used as gold-backed currency for the settlement of debts and payments, without the gold to which it related ever having to be removed from its safe storage vault. Now, this is a powerful concept and a major advance on the old system, but it was not without its own risks. All sorts of possibilities open up for the unscrupulous to take advantage of. The most obvious of these is the danger of forgery or alteration of a receipt. A receipt could be falsified from scratch by skilled hands, or a genuine receipt could be modified. The simple addition of a zero could multiply the value of the paper tenfold. These unscrupulous practices were open to both those who deposited gold and obtained receipts, and also third parties who accepted the receipts as payment. But we're not going to dwell on these parties in this discussion. No, rather we are going to focus solely on the opportunities which opened up for unscrupulous goldsmiths. I should point out at this time that it is way beyond the scope of this item to delve into all the possible ramifications of the advent of gold-backed paper money. It was never my intention to go into every last detail of this noteworthy subject. For example, I shall not cover here the demise of the gold standard 40 years ago and the reasons behind it. I simply seek to give the listener just sufficient background knowledge to understand what we are leading up to. The possibility that we could be about to witness the discovery of the largest and the most outrageous theft of public wealth in all time. So for the moment, let's continue to build on what we already know. Now, if everyone plays their part honestly, we have what amounts to a gold-backed paper currency that cannot be weakened by inflation, because the number of notes in circulation is strictly limited by the available amount of mined gold in existence. Keep in mind that whilst notes can always be printed, gold cannot. So banknotes, which is what these gold receipts in time duly became, were an excellent store of value. You could put them in a biscuit tin under the stairs for 20 years and not have to worry about them losing their purchasing power. This is not something you can do with modern currency, which is not gold-backed and is only worth what the broad mass of people and the markets perceive it to be worth. The original great concept of 100% gold backing for currency notes was sadly supremely ripe for exploitation. We have already mentioned some ways in which it could be undermined, but the one I wish to concentrate on, for reasons which will become clear, is the most outrageous of all: the issue by goldsmiths of receipts for non-existent gold bullion. I'm essentially talking here about forged gold bars that consist of very little gold to speak of. If we could fabricate from cheap base metal of a similar weight into the standard good delivery bar size, give it a thin veneer of real gold, then stamp it with a serial number, a maker's mark, and two four-figure digits representing its purity and year of manufacture, then the job is already half done. We have falsified something of great face value far more easily than if we had attempted to do the same thing with a modern banknote. Probably the bulk of bullion bars in the vaults of depositories around the world are the so-called London good delivery bars, weighing approximately 400 ounces each. With gold prices at the present time of writing, such a bar is worth approximately $600,000. And remember, the false ones out there took less skill, effort and machinery to produce than a convincing fake €5 note. Now then, as I said, the job is as yet only half done. The final step is to get these false bars into the bullion bank system. Once inside, they never need be re-assayed ever again. One might think then that there would be only a handful of very old and well-established refiners who are permitted to cast and assay gold delivery bars. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, however, it's completely wrong. The requirements for being able to produce trusted bullion bars are ludicrously lax. So ridiculously lax, in fact, that one might be forgiven for concluding that the bullion banks who codified the requirements are actively fostering and encouraging the creation of non-existent gold bullion. Quite why they should want to do this is a matter for conjecture, but one obvious possibility is that this practice is keeping the value of gold artificially low, something the central banks have always been very keen on because it masks the effects of inflation and makes their faith-based paper currencies appear far stronger stores of value than they really are. Now keep in mind that validating and reassaying existing bars is a time-consuming process. A carefully produced fake bar cannot be ascertained as fake by visual inspection alone. Neither does weighing or measuring its volumetric displacement get us very far. Certainly it will weed out the poorer fakes, but not the best. Due to the expense and inconvenience involved of constantly reassaying large numbers of bars, the custom arose many years ago of just accepting them at face value, provided always that the trusted chain of supply comprising casters, assayers, the bullion banks, accredited dealers and security-cleared transport firms had not been broken. Only when a bar came from an unknown source or had been temporarily outside of the bullion system did it become necessary to retest it. So all the time bullion bars lie in vaults of central banks around the world or are shipped between them, no tests are likely to be carried out on them. In fact, the Federal Reserve in the US and their puppets in Congress recently rejected a bill for an independent audit of the gold reserves in Fort Knox and other US depositories. This immediately prompted the conspiracy theorists to question whether there was any gold in Fort Knox at all. And one has to admit they do have a point. What has the Fed to hide? Reassaying a random sample of just a few dozen bars wouldn't cost much and would do much to silence the rumour mill. Unless, of course, there really is something they don't want us to know. I'd like to finish off by sharing with you a very curious story indeed on this very topic relating to one of Britain's biggest ever robberies, which would tend to indicate very strongly that this practice of faking gold bars is highly prolific and has been going on not just for years but for decades. Stick around for the final part 3, it'll be well worth it.